one of the highest rated people that I interviewed was David Dendy. So I knew that he would be a good person for us to just have a conversation with this morning. And a lot of times, you know, we've done this where we've done webinars, and I thought that this would be fun to do in a meeting format so that we could not only see each other, but talk and you know, instead of just being able to chat, that we could talk too. So let me tell you a little bit about David. If you were here before, you all know that he is an ordained pastor and has been for 30 years. He lives in Las Vegas, and he's been vice president of philanthropy at the University of Dubuque. And as a fundraiser, he's raised over $200 million for over 100 churches. He's a humorist, he's a professional speaker, and he's written 14 books. And we're just so excited that he's here for this conversation today. David, welcome.
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be here. Always fun to be with Robin, and I'm jealous of your probably your temperatures up there in Vail. I bet it's a little bit cooler there than it is here in Las Vegas. We had 102 yesterday, and so it has arrived. The summer has arrived, that's for sure. So, but always great to be here. And like you said, my goodness gracious, a lot has changed. You know, I think, you know, you started this 11 weeks ago in response to the COVID-19. And, you know, we've all been, you know, isolated and at home and not able to be out there and about and being with the people. And then, wow, how things have changed just over the last week. You know, our country and social unrest and, you know, protests turning into riots, and just a lot of things going on, and makes us wonder, okay, gosh, how do we respond? What do we do as nonprofits and as leaders of our organizations? How do we move forward? And so great to be here, and loving the opportunity to sit down with all of you and just share and just talk about, hey, what's going on with each of us. I don't know about you. I was on 3 one-hour consecutive Zoom calls late yesterday, and I came home, I was just exhausted. And I don't know about you, but I find meetings with people, I'm an extrovert type person. And so I love interacting with people live, in person, whatnot. But the virtual, I'm finding more, I thought it was kind of fun at first, but I'm finding it very, much more difficult to interact with people virtually than in person, because it's just hard to read. It's easier to read people's body language, you know, in person, but online it's tough to read, and and I get energy from people when I talk and this and that, but it's hard to do that on the virtual. And I'm wondering, first of all, how is everybody doing with everything going on? You tired? You energized? Are you exhausted? Overloaded? Just want to kind of back off and just say, you know what? Let's just wake me up in September, you know, kind of thing. So I'd be interested to hear how folks are doing.
And so when you all talk, as you know, bottom left-hand corner, you can unmute yourself and you can talk. Yay!
This is Renee. And can you guys hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm exhausted. I am working harder than I've ever worked, it seems. The things that we've had to move everything virtual, and doing respite virtually has been a challenge, but it's working. And it has been just exhausting. Very long days, but it's working, and we're doing really good right now. So both I think the whole mentality with everyone's doing great with that, plus financially we're doing great. So,
congratulations.
Thank you.
Renee, what state are you in, Renee?
I'm in Colorado. I'm up in the Vail Valley.
And then what is Colorado's current state of gathering and stay-at-home orders? Are you allowed to gather in groups? Or?
We are allowed to gather in groups. It's county by county by how many. But I work with a senior population, and they said we can meet. Excuse me. We can meet up to like 5 to 10 people.
Okay.
But we don't have our own facility, and we use a community room at a church. And so we can't really, it's not self-contained. We can't guarantee homeless people come in and go to the food bank that's right there. And so I can't guarantee that our seniors are going to be completely isolated. So we still are choosing to do it virtually.
And what I'm discovering is, if I knew, hey, we're going to be able to gather in large groups come July 30th, I'd be like, okay, I've got a goal in mind. I've got 8 weeks to do it, and then there seems like there's an end in sight. But I know in Las Vegas or Nevada, there's just no end in sight right now. And I find that to be tiring as well. Just the unknown of when are we going to get back at it? And it just, you don't know. I'd much rather know than not know.
Exactly.
Yeah, and David and I were talking about this article that was in the Wall Street Journal in the past couple of days, and the title of it was something like, are you exhausted from Zoom, or something like that. And interestingly, the article talked about physiologically what happens to us when we're on a lot of Zoom calls like this, is that when we're in person, like David said, we can read those nonverbals. But when we're like this, there are so much visual stimulation that it overloads us and makes us tired. And so I thought that was very interesting. And one of the things that it said was to hide your own video, because they said when we look in a mirror that we're used to seeing that image that comes back at us. We're not used to talking to other people and having to watch ourselves and our movements as we talk to other people. I thought it was very interesting. So if you do a Google search on that Wall Street Journal article, and isn't that what it was called, David? Something about, are you exhausted from Zoom?
Exactly. Yeah, Zoom exhaustion. Yeah. I think I saw Cookie raise her hand. Cookie?
Hi, I'm also in Eagle County, David, and I'm with Mountain Valley Horse Rescue, so entirely different organization.
Yeah.
And because things have opened up a little bit, we are going to be able to hold our day camps because everything's outdoors except for the kitchen and the bathroom. And
wow.
The biggest problem is transportation, because we used to bring all the kids. It's quite a long drive to the rescue from where we pick them up. So we're still working on all that. But we're really pleased, and we have 7 day camps with 12 kids each. We only have 5 openings right now. So, and my requests to people for scholarship funds is going well. And our rescues are up, just like dogs and cats. Horse rescues are up as well. So that allows us to keep our mission also of bringing more in. So that's all good. But everything else, the in-person events that we normally do in the summer, fundraisers, we're not doing a virtual live event, but we're doing an event. Frankly, we're borrowing from the Women's Foundation. We're going to be inviting people for a small amount of money, to have small fundraising things at their homes. And over a 3-day period, we will have a video available. That's the program. So I must admit, and I admitted it to the Women's Foundation, I stole the idea from them, and they said, that's fine, do it. So, we're all in this together. But yeah, there's the exhaustion, the emotional exhaustion factor, the eye strain exhaustion factor. Will we get through the year, knowing that, all of us know we're not likely to raise as much money as in the past. That doesn't mean that, as Robin and others have encouraged, that we're not going to keep trying and keep asking, as well as doing it with a empathetic heart, knowing that some people just can't do what they did before. Right. And then the other thing, in terms of the unrest in the country, particularly due to the most recent death of an African-American man by a police officer, I think it's really important to separate that most of the people that are demonstrating, first of all, they're risking themselves by going out there. And secondly, the looting is a much smaller percentage. And so I keep, in terms of what to do and how to respond, separating those two to me is really, really critical. And lastly, I was really pleased that, I think it's the mayor of Denver said that all the folks who demonstrated can get free COVID tests. You know, they have the right to be there. Let's make sure they stay healthy. So there are, besides that, there are other signs of hope and positive throughout all of this, I think, but whether it's COVID or the social unrest.
Great.
I won't talk about the president. I won't bring that up.
Hey, Diana Shear, if I can unmute you. You had put in the chat box that you're also exhausted. Could you unmute yourself and just tell us what's going on at Colorado Mountain College?
Can you hear me? Oh. Hold on.
We can.
Yes. Try again, Diana. Okay, well, while you're doing that, Rebecca Canali, I'm just curious. Rebecca is with United Way, and she has a good sense of all of the nonprofits here because they do give grants out. And so Rebecca, if you can hear me and you can unmute yourself, I'd love to hear from you.
Hi, good morning. So the best I can say right now is what I've noticed over time, which is, sorry, it's right there, honey. Which is that I think when this all, the coronavirus first hit, everyone was in shock, and everything had to shut down and everyone was isolated. So we were all trying to figure out what we were going to do. I know all of you know what I'm talking about. And I remember the first, like it was like that Friday that everything shut down. And so I received a phone call of somebody needing some food and resources for rent because they had just been diagnosed and were put into quarantine. And this was before, you know, everyone was in quarantine, or should I say isolated. And so I found myself reaching out to various nonprofits and asking, well, what are you still doing? What is your role? And even some folks that were involved with COVID response didn't actually know what the big picture was. They just said, I know what my role is. And I said, well, what's like the main phone number that people would call if they need help? And they said, I don't know. I just know that I get my orders and I do my part. And so I found that everyone, the word that keeps coming to mind was stunned. And I think that everyone, let me back up. I would say at least 90% of the nonprofits, local nonprofits, probably didn't have a disaster plan. And those that did probably didn't factor in the concept of isolation and not being able to utilize volunteers. And so I think it took a few weeks for folks to regroup, have some conversations, figure out how A, can we respond, B, how can we do what we normally do. And so there's this COVID response effort. And then there's also, well, how can we continue the programs that we're normally doing? Like Renee is a great example, I think, of she still had seniors to serve and the seniors were isolated and these folks have special needs. And so how do you continue to do the program? Because of course it is needed. It's very much needed. And so now I think folks have kind of gotten into the swing of things, but we are now in a situation where we are, oh dear God, what now? all of our programming for the summer is shut down. Maybe we can do this or that, as Cookie was mentioning. That's where a lot of the nonprofits sit right now is we might lose anywhere between a quarter to 70 or 80% of our annual revenue because we can't hold these fundraisers. And so I would say to everyone is that where you're at seems to be where your colleagues are at in my interaction. Of course, we're also doing a local COVID fund, Vail Valley Foundation doing another. We are granting to less recognized programs. So for example, we have funded there's a local food delivery program that a caterer is doing. And so we do still, we are still asking folks in the community, what are the needs? We're compiling the list of responses all the way from the federal level to the very local level to the neighbors helping neighbors level. And so I think that I can actually speak to what the state of what's happening is right now. I think more and more nonprofits are getting innovative and creative. And there's two more things I wanted to say and then I'll close. That to me is sort of the silver lining of this whole situation, is that yes, we are all stunned, we are stuck, but we are also uncomfortably being pushed to be innovative. And I think that we will all come out of this more resilient as people and as organizations, because we are being put in this uncomfortable place to think beyond our comfort zone. And so I see that as a good, a silver lining. And even though a lot of people may be very, very uncomfortable with how things are. The other thing I wanted to mention is the volunteer piece. And that is, of course, we do the weekly volunteer column in the Vail Daily. And several of you have probably heard me say that first week, I had to go down the list and delete because nobody had volunteer opportunities. And now all of these neat, innovative opportunities are coming up. As an example, again, Renee has posted, you know what, you could be a virtual activity buddy. These seniors still need to play games and interact, and you could call in and call your activity buddy and actually play a game. And so I think, again, I'm seeing the silver lining. I'm seeing the innovation and the good coming out right now. And that's, I think, what's happening. That's my perspective of what's happening within the nonprofit sector right now.
Great. Well, thanks, Rebecca, for giving us that overview. And Colleen, if you want to unmute and just tell us what the Literacy Project's doing, because I think this is very cool too, along the same lines of what Rebecca was just saying.
Well, we moved all our programs to Zoom, of course, and even our reading buddies, which is high school students with elementary school students, they have, usually it's an 8-week session, they requested to keep going because I think they want that social connection as well. And then our one-to-one volunteers, a lot of them are looking through I've been working on our database, are 70, 80 years old, and they have actually been able to change their format and work through Zoom to meet with their students on a weekly basis.
Nice.
So that's exciting. And then I don't know yet, but I think we might have some funding to do some literacy kits that will deliver to 300 preschoolers. So we just keep going. But I really prefer being in person as well, like David.
Oh gosh, yes. Absolutely. Because if I was there in person, I'd want to sign your cast. I can't.
Yeah, for those of you who came in later, Colleen was showing us her cast on her arm. Yep, there we go. But but she doesn't have any. Have you had anybody sign it, Colleen? That's the
No, because actually I have a plate and finishing nails in my hand. And so this is actually a removable splint.
Oh,
Oh, okay. So
finishing nails. Wow, that's a new one. Finishing nails.
That's what they really are.
Ouch. Ouch.
Thank you for asking.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
And so, David, one of the things that a few people have brought up is what's gone on here in the last 6 days. And one of the things that I was saying, and I don't know if you all have seen this, but there are a bunch of emails coming out addressing the George Floyd, and whether it's businesses or whether it's nonprofits. And they're coming out with a stance, even if their nonprofit doesn't have anything to do with equality or any of that. So David, talk a little bit about, what your thoughts are on that, because I think that's important for all of us right now.
My thoughts are, I think it would go without saying, I mean, it should go without saying, we're all concerned about equality. We're all concerned about people being treated fairly, equally, justly, regardless of color, race, religion, gender, whatever. I mean, everyone is equal in God's eyes and in our eyes. What I'm finding crazy, I saw a post this morning that says something like, don't speak out. Oh, well, your silence is part of the problem. The next one said, speak out. Oh, but you didn't speak out correctly, so therefore we're going to ban you. I mean, it's just this, on and on and on, and it just, we risk, whatever we say, it's a risk, because it's going to be interpreted by some people as, like, for instance, sending out the email or the announcement about this gathering here. I think Robin received a couple emails saying, this is the most tone deaf email we've ever received. And we thought, we're asking people to come to, who are heading up nonprofits, to come together and say, hey, how do we respond in times like this? From my perspective, it didn't sound tone deaf, because we're all experiencing the same thing. But for some people, it did. And it just made me realize what I think is right on the money, right on the mark. To someone else, it may seem like, whoa, what are you doing that for? And, oh, I didn't know you were this, this, and this. It's a fascinating time in the sense of, I'm not sure everyone's thinking rationally, I've been doing some reading on emotional intelligence and the brain, and you've got, and I'm no brain expert, but you've got the limbic system, which is deep in the recesses of your brain, which is your survival mode. It just says, what can I do to stay safe, and fight or flight, these kind of things. And then you have the prefrontal cortex, which is all about your rational thinking and decision making and logical and all this kind of stuff. And I'll read this to you. This, when the limbic brain is triggered, fight, flight, you got to survive, this kind of, when the limbic brain is triggered, it hijacks the thinking side of our brain. With the slightest trigger, our ability to apply reason and logic can drop by 75%. It just made me think, certainly as leaders of nonprofits and this and that, boy, if we get into the fight, flight, if we get into the limbic side of everything, boy, the rational thinking, the good decision-making practices, these type of things, is at risk. And so I'm wondering, I'd be curious, as Robin mentioned, are you all feeling a need to make a stance or to say something or to hashtag something out there, support this, support that, or do you feel like, I'll just keep it on the down low? What are y'all Do you have boards or staff that get together and talk about that kind of thing? I'd be interested to hear.
And if anybody wants to unmute yourself, you're welcome to do that and talk.
This is Rebecca. I'll go ahead and step up first. We, excuse me, we would like to acknowledge what's happening. And I think that a lot of boards are hesitant to take a particular stand. And maybe what we've done might encourage you to do something that is helpful and gets you involved, but not necessarily taking a particular position, political position, if you will. So good news is that we have stuff given to us from United Way Worldwide, who's absolutely involved with engaging and responding on so many different things. And they were helpful enough to provide us with a statement basically saying that we support inclusion and equality and justice. And, you know, it's a whole statement. It's about a paragraph long, but it in no way says we support one particular group or we support demonstrations, but we do support everyone having a voice and equality and justice. And so it's vague, and maybe that would irritate some people that would want us to take a particular bold position. But what it does is it helps us to express our dedication to those values and those principles.
Right. I know the Sacramento Kings, which is a National Basketball Association basketball team, their radio sports announcer, the announcer for the Sacramento Kings, he was in a tweet conversation with DeMarcus Cousins, who is a African-American basketball player who used to play for the Kings. And he was just, oh, hey, DeMarcus, how you doing? Back and forth, back and forth. And yeah, crazy what's going on, and hashtag all lives matter. Well, he was fired for saying hashtag all lives matter. And I think it just points to, we have to be really careful during these days of what's said and how things are interpreted or misinterpreted. And I'm kind of like with Rebecca, maybe vague is very good right now, but I read some other posts that said the fact that we're having a discussion about lives mattering, that's a problem in and of itself. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, isn't that a given? I think it is, but maybe for some people it's not. So anybody else?
So honestly, I haven't even thought about it.
Okay, good.
About doing anything from an organization stance of stating what, how we feel about it or whatever. I haven't even thought about it.
Okay, good. All right.
The Literacy Project, one of my younger staff members is coming up with a list of books that we'll have posted through social media. So for discussion about Black Lives Matter, racial discrimination, we're also going to partner with the Bookworm and our libraries to get that kind of information out.
Great.
Maybe a passive stance.
Like that.
That's great, Colleen. Thank you. That'll be great. Well, whether it's the current uproar of issues, which as a person, as an individual, even though I said there's a lot of hopeful stuff, it's really frightening to me. As an ACLU member, I'm very concerned for everybody. But in terms of the horse rescue, historically, because this may sound like a kind of cowardly approach, but I think it's the rational approach. Because our donors come from such a wide range of political and social backgrounds, as an organization, we tend to stay away from taking stances. So should we change that? I'm not sure. We haven't talked about it. We haven't had a board meeting. We have our board meetings virtual right now, which, as you said, David, makes it, it's not the same. There's no question. There's my dog, by the way, for anybody who needs a dog fix. He loves these meetings. So we've been focusing as an organization on what we can do in the community to educate people about what we do, which has to do with using your heart and applying it to something that's important. And I'm not sure that's going to change. Now, as individuals, do we talk about it individually? Of course we do. And do we talk about how we're choosing to act, whether it's letter writing or phone calling or demonstrating as individuals? Yes. And we support each other, and those dialogues, those conversations can sometimes be pretty darn interesting. But at any rate, that's where we are right now. We have a board meeting in a week and a half. We'll see if this comes up. I don't know what to expect. It's a part of the world that is important to all of us as individuals, because everybody on the board has very strong interests in making the world a better place, not just for horses. And so I'm not sure that we will. But historically, our stance has been to not take specific positions on major social issues outside of our mission.
Right. Well, I think, Cookie, I think you're right on the money. I mean, it's interesting, and this is my, maybe this is my limbic brain, thinking, or not thinking, but I thought, oh yeah, hashtag, all horses matter. But that could be seen or interpreted as, wait a minute, that's tone deaf. I mean, so I think, as Cookie mentioned, what do we do as an organization? What can we do individually? Absolutely. What do we do as an organization? Keep that in the forefront. Let's not get sidetracked or sidelined by other events, and helping people. I think I can't remember who said it, but here maybe it was Rebecca who said, these are the specific things we're offering people that they can get involved in, they can be a part of, and here's what you can do right here and now. Because I think people are, I'm looking for things to do. I'm tired of sitting here at the computer, virtual this and virtual this. I want to get out and get my hands dirty and grab something, or hug somebody. I know that's against the rules too, but I mean, I just want to be out there doing something, and it takes me away from the loneliness, the isolation, where I don't know about anybody else, but when I'm alone and isolated, there's good parts of that. I use that time wisely. There's other parts where, and I've talked with enough folks to know their minds just start racing, and if you're watching whatever your news channel is, and you're watching that 24/7, oh my gosh, it's just this downward spiral. And how do you get out of it? Well, let's go out and let's support literacy. Let's go out, be a senior buddy. Let's go out and help with the day camp for the horses. I mean, I think, us as organizations, either by email or social media or whatever, offering people, here are the concrete things you can do is a huge plus to not only to our donors, but our constituency, but to the community as well. Here's things you can do to help.
Wow. Yeah. And I think we're all just looking for something. And so I think that's very wise advice, David, is, whether it's just this pent up desire and that's, continuing to cause that limbic brain to come forward. I don't know, but I just continue to say that people seem to be acting irrationally. And I think one of the things that I'm trying to do is give people more leeway than I may have given them in the past, because there's just some irrational behavior. I mean, people I know, people I don't know. And I think this is a time that we just give people a little more grace. and try to understand that you don't know what's going on in their life right now. So now, Linda, if you could unmute yourself, you put something in the chat box, which I think is great. If you'd be willing to just talk about that, because that's a really interesting thing that your nonprofits decided to do.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we were kind of stunned, the day before our big spring performance and workshop weekend, poof. So as I said in the chat, we made the really tough decision to just cancel everything because everybody else seemed to be, by the hour, more and more things were shutting down. And some of our performers were concerned enough that they chose not to be part of we did actually a closed recording session since we had all of our, our local performers, our out of town and out of state performers were there. We were all rehearsed. We were ready to go. We couldn't have an audience because our venues shut down. So we did a audio video recording as in our rehearsal space, so we were able to capture the work we had done, although certainly it was very strange with no audience. But we looked at several different scenarios, and after a lively discussion among board members, the decision was to just hold off. I would probably have gone for planning not to do anything this fall or next, this coming fall, but to look towards spring for performances. But, the majority of the board were adamant about holding off longer because of unknown timeline for the virus resolution. So we are on hiatus. We are, just kind of digging into improving the organization. We were on the verge of doing a big strategic planning and organizational review. And rather than doing that, sadly, our biggest expense at the moment has been, except for our performers and all, has been our wonderful executive director. So we made another difficult decision to terminate her contract. So we're going it alone with the board. She may work with us on a project basis. But, we're just conserving our resources, mainly our fiscal resources, but also since we don't have concerts and workshops and other education to produce during the coming year, we're going to focus on getting our organizational structure in better shape and doing fundraising, which we really need. We lost a bunch on the canceled performances and workshops. And just like Rebecca was saying, thinking outside of the box. I mean, there are I am, and you probably are, seeing so many really creative, interesting, innovative ways to do things that we're being forced to come up with because of the current circumstances. And, they're coming up, they're coming to mind, it's kind of the whole country, the whole world is sort of brainstorming things. And once we got past the period of we're all doomed, which, whatever, it's like, well, yeah, we could do this like this, and we could try that, even though we never have, and it's not necessarily an obvious part of what we do. And, there are ways to connect maybe with similar organizations or very different organizations for mutual benefit. So anyway, I'll stop yapping, but basically we're using the coming year because we can't perform together. People don't want, as much as people's hearts want to be together to make music, it's simply not safe. We're a Baroque ensemble and it's choral based. So we've got a bunch of singers, we've got guest singers, we've got guest instrumentalists, and it's just really not safe at this point. So until we can get together safely, We're going to work on the organization and our funding base rather than the music that we would really, really love to be doing.
Wow. Well,
Linda, Linda, let me
Yes.
ask you, do you have recordings of previous years' concerts and whatnot?
We do, and that's part of what we're talking about. How do we utilize that?
Right.
Now, they're all live recordings. Most of them are live recordings. So there's, a kind of a quality control issue that always comes up around live recordings.
Right.
Um, that's going to be for the ongoing board. Our fiscal year and our board transition happens July 1st. So
Okay.
we're kind of teeing up a bunch of things for the ongoing board to consider and deal with. And that is definitely one of them. Because so many people, so many organizations have free content out there now, understandably. We have not done that because it turns out the guy who did our recording ended up with COVID. And so getting the production of that completed was really slowed down. And we just got it a couple of weeks ago. So now it's like, well, how do we best make use of this material?
wow. And so, Linda, there's been a request if you would tell what organization you're with and where you are.
Oh, sure. Seicento Baroque Ensemble. We're based in the Boulder, Denver area.
Okay.
Yeah, Seicento. It's an Italian word that means the 17th century, basically, the 1600s.
Okay.
Well, thanks, Linda. Thank you for sharing that, because I think it's important for all of us to hear that, organizations are taking different routes here to, try to figure this out as, we're navigating this future.
Let me just mention that part of the consideration was that a number of our singers, and as with similar organizations, a number of our audience members are in the high risk, higher age group.
Mm-hmm.
So, a consideration of, well, who is going to be willing to come to a performance or even a rehearsal? That really figured into our decision making.
Wow.
I
And
think one thing, if you don't mind, excuse me, Robin, just one thing I seemed to pick up on there, Linda was talking, is that question: how do we keep our donors, our stakeholders, how do we keep them engaged, whether we're taking a break or not taking a break, but during this virtual time, and I'm sure this has been part of the conversation over the last 11 weeks, Robin, how do we stay engaged, and what are the ways we can continue to reach out, either by phone, by virtual, social media, drive-throughs, drive-bys, whatever it may be. I don't know about anybody else, but if I don't have it in front of me, I forget about it. And someone say, well, why didn't you do this? It went off my to-do list screen. I mean, my to-do list was so long, it went to the bottom of the screen. I didn't see it. And so how do we keep people seeing who we are, what we're doing, this and that? I mean, even if it's just Cookie sending out a picture of a horse, this is our horse, what Silver, and Silver was born, blah, blah, and this kind of breed and this and that. And one of our favorite horses that has, 485 children have ridden Silver in the last 10 years, or, whatever it may be. Just how do we stay engaged? Colleen, we've had, 500 books checked out this summer or this month or this, whatever it may be, 45,000 pages have been read. Just something. How do we keep people, engaged in whatever our nonprofit's mission and dream is all about?
yeah, and David, it's interesting. Cookie said that just wait for her Facebook challenge on June the 12th. So she already has that figured out. Well, one thing, and you all may have seen this, that in Sunday's comic section of the newspaper, I don't know if you all saw this or not, but what each of the cartoonists have been challenged to do is to hide things in their comic strip that has to do with supporting healthcare workers. So it might be a mask or whatever. So I thought, wouldn't that be creative if you could do that for, whatever you do, like you could hide a horse in there, or you could hide, I don't know, Renee, how you do somebody that was a senior, or a musical instrument. And Cookie asked which paper. It's going to be all of them. So whether it's, whatever comic strip you read, whether it's Doonesbury, but that's one of the things that's happened here is all of the cartoonists have come together. And some of them said it's really difficult because if they are doing another century, how do you put a mask in when or a respirator that wasn't even invented for, until after that. But they all came together. And so just, you can go online and just search, comic strip, zits or whatever, and it'll pull up whatever that comic site is, and look at Sundays, because I think that can give us a way to just kind of get creative with what is it that we could do that's different and unique.
That's just interesting. I was having a conversation with a very good friend of mine last night, and we were talking about the whole idea of permission. Most of us, if you're anything like how I grew up, we were constantly asking permission. Can I go outside? Can I go over to so-and-so's house to play? Can I have a cookie? Can I? We're constantly asking permission, and we've grown up with this idea that I've got to ask someone for permission to do whatever it may be. And what would happen if we gave ourselves permission to really be outside the box, collaborate with other nonprofits? And I'm picking on Cookie and Colleen today, probably because Colleen's got a broken arm. But how could literacy help out with horse rescue? And how could you two work together to help each other out, but also to help the community? I don't even know if you're in the same community or not, but how could we give ourselves permission to, by golly, we're going to do something we've never done before? And that's one thing, as I think Rebecca mentioned, just loving the silver lining of the creativity that is going into this. And I think that's where our brains really kick in. Hey, if we don't get creative, then we're going to sink or swim. I mean, if we don't get creative, we're going to sink. So let's get creative so we can swim, not only swim, put an engine on the back of that boat and just really take off. So what are, as far as dealing with the boards, it'd be interesting to have a discussion with the board of what is informing our decision making. Is there anything that would give us permission to think outside of what typically informs our decisions? We're not taking any money, so we have to shut down. And Linda, I'm sure that was a very difficult decision for your board to make. Okay, we don't have any money, but how can we still do what we're called to do? The mission's still there. The need is still there. People still love listening to Baroque music. I mean, how can we still provide this opportunity? People still need to read. Seniors still need to get together, whether we have a lot of funding or not much funding. So what are the ways we can do that? So.
Great, thanks.
Robin, would you mind? This is Rebecca. I am just hearing this, and I actually really, I wonder if Vail Jazz is on, because I think they had a really neat way to respond, continue their programming, and be upfront and present. And what they did was 30 days of Vail Jazz. And every day they would, and it's a little bit employee heavy, I'm sure, but every day they would send out an email to their database that had a little bit of education around jazz. And it was just a little friendly, like a paragraph or two, but just a little something in your inbox. And I can't say I read every day, but sometimes I read it, and it was a little, it was light and it was interesting. And yes, it was another email, But it wasn't just, this is what we're doing as part of the COVID response. It was an extension of their program that was innovative and helped them be present every day. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Vail Jazz for doing that.
Great. Yeah, that's a great idea. Okay, so we're getting to the top of the hour here now. I can't even believe it. There were so many things that David and I wanted to talk to you all about, where we said, wait, we can talk about this and we can talk about this. And so we're almost to the top of the hour. But I will tell you that one of the things, because that David and I have talked about this a little bit and said, you know, what is it that we feel like that we could do to help the nonprofit community? And some of you all saw this last time that we talked about it last week, but David and I developed an online program for executive directors. And part of what we wanted to wait and talk to you all this morning about was just to be sure that we're covering everything that we feel like that the EDs need to know when we're navigating the seas of change. And yes, that seas is C''S, but we're using that as a metaphor for what types of things can we help executive directors, aspiring executive directors, EDs, presidents. And what you'll get is you'll get an online program where we do really short videos, 3 to 5 minute videos. And then David and I will be on a group coaching call with you all, similar to what we've done this morning, talking about the challenges, the things that you all are going through, and how can we put some of these things into place. And it's $97 for 6 weeks. You can't get anything that inexpensive when you talk about getting David and me both for 6 weeks. And you can just go to robinthompson.com and book now. But if you say, you know, I'm not an ED, or I don't want to be an ED, I'm doing another one called Fundraising Your Way Out of a Crisis. And it's a similar format, also $97 for 6 weeks. And so I wanted to just let you all know that we are going to be doing that, and I'll put that in the chat box. David, is there anything you want to say about that?
Very excited to work with Robin on this. And she's, as you well know, she's a seasoned pro and helping navigate during these times to the seas of change that we're all navigating, kind of uncharted waters. But how can we, you know, not just get back to the basics, but, you know, explore, hone some skills to make sure that our nonprofits are just the well-oiled machines that they need to be to continue reaching out, providing the great mission that we offer to our communities.
Yeah, and you know, David and I just love working together. We have had so fun just talking about how are we going to make this program fun, different, and exciting, because again, you know, we're in this world of delivering things on Zoom. And so so somebody just asked the question, is there a benefit to doing both? And yes, the second one, so if you sign up for both, the second one is 50% off. So it doesn't matter which one's the second one. So there is a benefit for both. And if you want to do both, just send me an email. And you know, it's not set up to do that. So just go ahead and send me an email and we'll get you signed up for both. So anyway, final comments, David?
Well, I cannot thank each of you, not only for joining today, but just for the great work that you're doing. And I want to encourage you to continue to persevere through these uncharted waters. And I'm reminded of the story of a gentleman. I think he moved from Missouri out to San Francisco during the gold rush era, and spent a lot of money. And he hit a pretty big vein. Gold is found in veins, and he was digging this way, hit the vein, made enough money off the gold to pay for all of his expenses. But he kept digging this way because he didn't know how veins worked and got frustrated. And then he sold the mine for, I think, $10 or something to somebody else. Next guy came in. He knew how veins worked, that they moved this way. And just 36 inches to the left was the continuation of this vein, and this guy made millions and millions of dollars off of this gold mine. Had that first guy just persevered a little bit, shifted, pivoted, and moved in a different direction, he would have been, I mean, he would have discovered the gold mine. So I'm wondering, for all of us, we're in strange times, a little pivot here, a little pivot there, and perseverance, and we just might hit that vein that is just around the corner to keep on moving forward, where our nonprofits will continue to flourish and grow and serve the community that we love so dearly. So thank you very much for all that you're doing. Keep up the good work. I'm so impressed with all the organizations mentioned that are represented here today. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Anyway, thank you all. Thank you all. Keep doing the great work you're doing, and just email me if you have any questions, and just appreciate you all being here. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.